Other musicians who appeared on the album include Andy Mackay of Roxy Music, along with the Portsmouth Symphonia. Now, this was an orchestra in which Eno had once played clarinet. The Portsmouth Symphonia allowed anyone to join as long as they had absolutely no experience with the instrument they were playing the orchestra. Can you imagine?
Oh, I would. Please don't offer me any of their tracks. Thank you. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy, and the fellow over there is John. John, how you doing, man?
Yeah, fair to middling, thank you.
Excellent. Yes, you are very welcome, sir. It's always good to check in on each other. You are up to bat today as far as the offering of new music to me and maybe some of the people in the listening audience. Though I have a haunting suspicion a lot of people are tuning in to this for the sake of nostalgia. Who are you offering up today, and what is the track?
Okay, so the artiste is Brian Eno, often known as Eno, and the track is Third Uncle.
Hey, all right, yeah, I have always I know Brian Eno is a musician and has done his own thing, but I've always associated him with what he's done with other people's music. In whatever capacity. So this is interesting to finally go off and just listen to some stuff that's definitively his. So,
well, interesting enough, I was in the same position a couple of years ago. All I'd ever heard of his solo stuff was ambient music for airports, which is, and Greg on Into the Music gave me The Big Ship by Brian Eno. It was either my first or second ever, I think it was my first ever reaction on the channel. And it just blew my mind. And so I went off and got a load of his solo stuff. And this song has particular sort of fondness anyway. But yeah. So yeah,
okay.
That started my journey into appreciating his solo work.
Yeah, well, this will probably be my version of that experience that you had with Greg. So thank you for blessing me with this. I'll go off, give it a listen, and come back and let everyone know what I think. Like that. What? This bass is terrific. All of this sounds really great. Love those jangly guitars. Love that tight drumming. Yeah, this is a treat. Let's take that back. Sorry, guys. Mm. Okay, gonna pause it for a second and take a breath. It's really cool how like there's obviously this like manic nature to the music. I mean, everything is it's got all this frenetic energy to it. Um, and I didn't know if we were going to get vocals. I was thinking, oh, we might have an instrumental here on our hands, which would have been perfectly fine. And there's nothing wrong with the lyrics or the vocals, I should say. I'm not catching the lyrics, but the vocals, they have this like really interesting juxtaposition to the music because there's almost this sort of like disassociated or apathetic kind of approach to the vocal delivery. I mean, there's some. It sounds like there's vocal layering there, but there's not much when you compare it to how much energy and enthusiasm is in the music itself. Uh, the vocals are kind of devoid of any of that. They don't really have um, any like fervent energy behind them. And compared to the music, I just think it's really cool and interesting that they chose to do that. Right, that's a decision that they made. You know, from a thematic standpoint or just an artistic standpoint. And I just think it's kind of cool to have those two kind of polar opposite sounds pulled together. It's so good. Oh, there's drums. What a bend. Oh, all right, I'm going to take some of this back. This is awesome. This guitar is so oddly, close to off the rails. It's like watching a drunk trying to walk a straight line and just barely keeping everything together. And that's just sort of the flow of it. But the sound that I guess this is Eno himself kind of tinkering with on the guitars is oddly reminiscent, and reminiscence is a strange term because this predates what I'm about to correlate it with. But if you had told me that a very young Tom Morello had heard some of this guitar work and let it leak into the influences that would, sort of mold him into the amazing guitarist that he is, I wouldn't bat an eye. There's some really interesting. It's like sci-fi sounds meet record scratching, and all this friction and energy is just really, really cool and interesting. And yeah, I heard that and I just thought Morello. That reminds me of Tom Morello. So we're gonna take this back, I guess, to the 4 minute mark and hope that we can capture some of that again. You know what? 350 sounds even better. Wow. That flew by. Wow. Sounds like Tamarello. Oh my gosh. That was great. I loved all of that. It was so very interesting. The sort of sound dynamics within the music, which is all turned up. I mean, they didn't shift super, they didn't pull back a lot, but there was all this different added, like these additives, this friction. And even with the bass goes from like sort of the guy in the back of the room to nose, eye to eye, sort of judiciously peppered in throughout the song where it's just pulling back and leaping forward. The drums, man, whoever played the drums on this, forearms on fire after this track, I would have to imagine. It's all the energy and really, really interesting sound choices, particularly with the guitar, all of that like sort of playful scratching and just sonic thrusting. I mean, at one point it sounded like a hot laser beam just cutting through butter, cutting through anything really. Yeah, this was one of the more interesting songs I think John has, from my point of view anyway, that John's given me of late, which is to take nothing away from some of the great songs he's given me, but songs can be great and formulaic, and by formulaic I mean sticking to a very rigid or structured kind of format. And then there's this, which is just like, even when there are structured pieces to the format, they flirt with changes and dynamics and different sounds that give it new life each time. And yeah, I would be jonesing to hear this again. And I'm sure I will listen to this again in the very near future. I just admire all the instrumentation throughout this track. And while I did like the sort of juxtaposition of the vocals compared to the energy of the music, they really didn't stick out to me from a lyrical standpoint. I didn't really catch much, if anything, on this. So John's going to have to help me out. This is definitely one of those where there was a line firmly drawn in the sand, and I had to make an executive decision about what I was really going to focus on. And I don't even know if I made this executive decision. I think the song kind of made it for me. It's like, you will listen to this music, all of it, every little nook and cranny that you can catch. And it was, yeah, great song. I mean, Eno's kind of a legend anyway, so this doesn't surprise me that this would be some of like his stuff. Which honestly, I've always heard him connected with other bands, but never any of the stuff that's just under his name. So it was good to be able to do that, and I am all the better for having heard it. So let's get back to John and have him spill the details on this track, this album, perhaps, and the man himself. All right, let's get back to him.
All right, Governor, back again from the good ship Eno.
Yes, back again. Interesting song title, man. I don't know. I have no more clarity on how it is relevant to the song or any.
Not at all.
Yeah. believe me, I gave up on song title and lyrics pretty quickly into this one.
Good move. Good move.
And for pretty obvious reasons. I mean, the lyrics were pretty scant, comparatively speaking, like when you look at the song as a whole anyway. And from a musical standpoint, there was just so much that commanded your attention. It leaves very little room, to decipher lyrics. There's not a lot of open breath. This isn't exactly a song like a Nick Drake song or like the Frightened Rabbit song where there's room to breathe and you can really focus. No, 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 no. I love sort of the ominous nature to how the bass starts the song. And at first it's that 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of like eighth note kind of playing, and then he starts adding this extra flourishes between notes and stuff, and it's really growing and becoming really something to behold. I mean, and my attention was immediately grabbed from the word go. And soon the drums come in, and we're treated with these jangly guitar progressions as well. And I'm loving the pace and rhythm of the drums, and the guitars are like, wow, they're so good. They sound so good. And the rhythm of the song is bonkers, as I just alluded to there with my appreciation for the drums. There's just so much. The frenetic energy of the drums spills over into the other instruments, and so you get frenetic energy from them, and all of a sudden you're just in this manic whirlwind of music. And I loved it, man. The occasional bass fills that like pepper in throughout portions are so like full and fun and rich, and kind of semi unexpected the first couple times you hear them. Then you sort of understand where they're coming in the pattern, and you're like, then you look forward to them like a holiday or a visitor that you haven't seen in a while. So yeah, I really had a lot of fun with that as well. It was around the 122 mark that we are introduced to vocals for the first time. And they have this like multiple or layered sound to them, like it's multiple. I don't know if it's Eno himself singing, but it sounds like it's like a multi-vocal track there. And they hover somewhere between like apathetic and disassociated, which is really, really interesting because of the juxtaposition of the mood that they're providing versus the energy of the song. So you have this like almost push-pull kind. I mean, it works, but you have these two polar opposites that are somehow being drawn together, which is like a physical anomaly. So that's really kind of neat and interesting that they chose to go that route. I'm also noticing behind a lot of the fun guitar noodling, there is another guitar generated sound, and we both love and have discussed this frictious sounding clip strum of strings done with varying degrees and speed and rapidity, and that's what they're employing in this song as well. And that's also this really fabulous rhythm technique that the guitar is using, and it only adds to the wonderful rhythm of the song as a whole. And it's not until the like damn near the 3-minute mark that we are treated to the second round of these sparsely used lyrics. And if I'm honest, none of it. Got zero. The nature of their delivery and how they are competing for oxygen, like with all these amazing sounds from the rhythm section and the interesting melody making of the guitars, makes it near impossible for one to focus on or comprehend.
Tadlu Rishlu, the tables have been reversed.
Yes, exactly.
It's me saying
around the 311 or so mark, we start to hear the slow creeping of some feedback cutting through the crowd of sound, like a hot laser would cut through butter or styrofoam. It's just obliterate, like it just comes in, and then it bends and shifts into this more shrill pitch before all of a sudden this lead work on the guitar begins, almost like a drunk trying to regain its equilibrium in an attempt to walk a straight line. It nearly goes down, but it never hits the ground. And I love that too. That was very raucous, and I don't know, it fit. It was just perfect for the song that they had built to that point. And at 419, we hear some like hella cool sounds from the guitar yet again. And I can only think that, or think to liken it to some sort of early attempt at replicating sci-fi sound effects, coupled with the scratching of records. And this is when I had like this epiphany moment. And I've talked to you more off camera than on camera about my admiration for this guy's guitar playing. But if you had told me that this was an early influence to a young Tom Morello, I wouldn't bat an eye. This little bit that had like sound or something that crawled. So like this sound had kind of a style to it that if you told me it's what crawled so that his style could walk, I'd be like, yes, this makes perfect sense because it had that to it. And this was not that far from when Morello started to play, so it may have just been a coincidence. But isn't it? Was this what year was this?
1974.
1974. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So then absolutely it could have been influential. I for some reason had it pegged as like an 80s song.
Mm.
But yeah, this was even underscores more my what I'm positing as a possibility. So yeah, the sound fades out, and we fade to black, and I have to say that it has been one of the more interesting songs you've given me in a bit, and that doesn't make any of the other recent songs less likable, nor does what I'm saying an attempt to undercut some of those that are really great songs. But they and so is the stuff I give you, what the fuck, who am I talking about? But it's just a lot of songs that we listen to are typically formulaic. Every once in a while, we'll get a listener recommendation, or one of us will have this interesting thing that's out of left field. But it can be formulaic, but expertly done, and that makes it no less enjoyable. This was just kind of more fun and interesting to listen to, and it's just the insistent drums, the bass work that would go from like man in the back to nose, eye to eye with you, and like with no like out of left field. Like it's just all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm listening to it, I hear it coming, then it's like right in your face. And that was a very interesting choice too. And it was just all these amazing techniques used to create and manipulate rhythms, and some of the melodies that were played on the guitar as well. It was just all really superb. My only bit of criticism is that this song could have easily been an instrumental. And I don't know if I would have liked it. I know I wouldn't have liked it less. I don't know if I would have liked it more if it wasn't. It's just that the vocals seemed almost superfluous to me on this one listen, if I'm being completely honest. But again, that superfluous isn't detrimental. It's just there, and you don't know if it needs to be. So it doesn't take away from the song, a song that I really, really, really liked. This is going to be somewhere at the end of the year discussion for me, and I don't know if it's going to make what if we do a 3 or whatever, but it will be in that discussion for me for sure, and we'll see how the rest of the year goes. But yeah, I really, really loved this.
Cool. Top 15 then. Yeah.
At least I'm saying top 8 for sure.
So
whatever that's worth.
Yeah. Just a bit about this song. I mean, I've known this song for decades, but done by another band. That band is Bauhaus.
Is this a Bauhaus song, or did they cover? No, okay.
When I first got it, I never really checked, so I didn't realize for a few years that it was a Brian Eno song. And it's the opener to The Sky's Gone Out, and great album, and it's one of my favorite tracks they've done, and they did a few covers. But if you can imagine this morphed into that sort of Bauhausy, slightly gothy sound, and Pete Murphy's vocals with that deep baritone trying to be a bit spooky, it works really well.
I could totally see, from what I remember from Bauhaus, the guitar work easily translating to them, because they had a little bit of fun with their guitar stuff too, from what I recall. And this is chock full of that jangly, frenetic nature.
Well, actually, it's a bit more distorted and rounded. Actually, it's not quite spiky. So I wasn't expecting much from this when I first heard it, and I was blown away because, I mean, I'm not a music historian, but who the fuck was doing this sort of stuff in 1974? I mean, it's really.
Yeah, that you totally surprised me when you dropped 74. I honestly thought you were going to say like 85 or something, just a few years before, Morella started to pop on the scene.
So it's amazing, and I thought this is so interesting, and there's just the strum patterns of the guitar alone is just really cool. I really like the vocals, and I like the nonsense sort of stuff, but then I would, So Brian Eno, I won't go into his whole career because it's very long, varied, but I'll give you.
Really quick question about this song before you start getting into the man himself. the instrumentation on this song, who was this just him? Did he do everything? Did he have a band with him in the recording sesh?
Yes, but I won't get into that.
Oh
So,
geez.
just very quickly, Brian Peter George Eno, born 1948, English musician, producer, visual artist, innovator, and all-round genius. So, skirting through it, he went to Winchester School of Art, of course, and then joined Roxy Music, complete with synths, cape, and feather epaulets. And he stayed for 2 albums, and really contributed a lot to that sound, and then left to craft a solo career. Interestingly, after his 5th solo album, he stopped providing vocals and created a whole new genre called ambient music. He had a significant impact on a number of artists as a producer. David Bowie's Berlin Trilogy, Talking Heads, Devo, U2, Slow Dive, James, Coldplay, Peter Gabriel, and many, many others. In fact, Peter Gabriel's latest album that came out this year was produced by Eno. So this is his 2nd album, Taking Tiger Mountain by Strategy, and it was released in November 1974. So it's a loose concept album that has references of themes of geopolitical intrigue, ranging from espionage to the Chinese Communist Revolution. It's mad. It did receive positive reviews from the critics on its release, and since its release, it's gained momentum and even more critical attention. There's like 4 of his albums that are rated like some of the best ever, and this is probably 4th out of the others, but I really like this album. So his debut album, Here Come the Warm Jets, he had 16 different musicians and sort of magpied them all in. This one was a core band of 5 instrumentalists. So Eno's doing vocals, electronics, electric guitar, keyboards. Phil Manzera, his colleague from Roxy Music, electric guitar. Brian Turrington, bass guitar. Freddie Smith, drums, and Robert Wyatt, percussion. Now, I only know Robert as a solo artist, but he was in Soft Machine beforehand, and he's pretty well known in this country within a certain group. Other musicians who appeared on the album include Andy Mackay of Roxy Music, along with the Portsmouth Symphonia. Now, this was an orchestra in which Eno had once played clarinet. The Portsmouth Symphonia allowed anyone to join as long as they had absolutely no experience with the instrument they were playing the orchestra. Can you imagine?
Oh, I would. Please don't offer me any of their tracks. Thank you.
So the album was inspired by a series of postcards depicting Chinese revolutionary opera titled Taking Tiger Mountain by Strategy. Eno described his understanding of the title as referring to the dichotomy between the archaic and the progressive. Half taking Tiger Mountain, that Middle Ages physical feel of storming a military position, and half by strategy, that very, very 20th century mental concept of a tactical interaction of systems. So let's clear that up. Now, to further explore the possibilities of the studio setting, Eno and his friend Peter Schmidt developed instruction cards called oblique strategies. And Greg and I talked about this in that reaction into the music. Yeah. During the recording sessions, he would allow the cards that they've created to dictate the next unconsidered action in the recording process. So examples of these cards would have phrases on them like, what wouldn't you do? Or give way to your worst impulse, abandon normal instruments, or ghost echoes. Describing the words on the album as an expression of idiot glee, Eno and Schmidt eventually expanded the oblique strategies to set to over 100 worthwhile dilemmas, which will be used in nearly all his future recordings and productions. You can actually buy sets of these oblique strategies. The album's lyrics have been described as remarkably literate and often humorous, with quick-fire rhymes, oddball couplets, abrupt demands, and ruthless statements. To create the lyrics, Eno sang nonsense syllables to the record's backing tracks and then turned them into words. So that's why you get this stream of nonsense.
Okay.
And this lyric writing method he used for all of his vocal-based recordings in the 70s. No singles were released in this album, and it failed to chart in both the UK and the States. But here's like a little sort of crits summation here, which is quite funny. So Wayne Robbins of Cream, that's with two E's and no A, Cream, lauded Eno for the way he grafts seemingly disparate elements in any way that might be useful to his flow. Robbins explained, "It sounds like it might be pretentious. It's not, because Eno is comfortable with these pretensions." That's just a brilliant quote. And Circus magazine described the album as sick, 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 but oh, it feels so good. Guaranteed to be put on the most wanted list by psychopaths everywhere. Eno takes you on a Dadaist tour de force, lampooning and integrating every type of music conceivable. So he enjoyed himself. Now, this
Sounds like it.
song is based on a bass guitar riff by Brian Eno, which borrows from Pink Floyd's One of These Days in the use of its delay. And then behind this are two rhythm guitars, one by Eno and one by his former Roxy bandmate Phil Manzanera, each playing frenetic staccato chords. And it says here, Eno's vocals were sung in near monotone. You don't say. Um,
And you know how much I love that.
yeah, and it's just I really actually like listening off the lyrics when I listen to this, and I don't know if it's this kind of shopping list of nonsense, but yeah, anyway, we'll go for it. Here are the lyrics. There are tins, there was pork, there are legs, there are sharks, there was John, there are cliffs, there was mother, there's a poker, there was you, then there was you, etc. There are scenes, there are blues, there are boots, there are shoes, there are Turks, there are fools, they're in lockers, they're in schools, they're in you. Then there was you. I'll burn my fingers, burn my toes, burn my uncle, burn his books, burn his shoes, cook the leather, put it on me, does it fit? It looks tight on you. And then it kind of repeats those three verses. I'll burn my fingers, burn my toes, burn my uncle, burn his shoes, burn his books, burn his shoes. Cook the leather, put it on me. Does it fit me or you? It looks tight on you. There are tins, there was pork, there are legs, there are sharks, there was John, there are cliffs, there was mother, there's a poker, then there was you. Then there was you. There are scenes, there are blues, there are boots, there are shoes, there are Turks, there are fools, they're in lockers, they're in schools, they're in you. Then there was you. I'll burn my fingers, burn my toes, except you get the idea. So it just continues like that. As I said before, the song was covered by Bauhaus for their 1982 album, The Sky's Gone Out. Describing the basis for the cover version in 2017, Pitchfork wrote that Eno contributed to goth's sonic DNA, especially in his love for synthesizers and abstract instrumentation. His pre-ambient solo career is full of aggressive, gleefully perverse proto-goth songs. Other people have said it's almost proto-punk as well. There's a great comment on one of the YouTube videos of this. One of the viewers has written, "I played this one time for someone and they didn't like it at all. I was so confused. To me, this is so obviously interesting and fun to listen to. Not to mention cool. I wish Brian Eno had done more music like this instead of all that ambient stuff." Eno is often referred to as one of popular music's most influential artists. Critic Jason Ankeny at AllMusic argues that Eno forever altered the ways in which music is approached, composed, performed, and perceived. And everything from punk to techno to new age bears his unmistakable influence. Eno spread his techniques and theories primarily through his production. So this includes obviously Bowie's Berlin trilogy, which helped to popularize minimalism, and it really is an outstanding set of albums. The albums that he produced for Talking Heads, which incorporated on Eno's advice the African music and the polyrhythms, and they're probably their three best albums. Devo's debut album, and loads of other groups. And as we discussed recently on Holger Chukai's episode, his collaboration with David Byrne in 1981's My Life in the Bush of Ghosts with those sampling techniques broke ground. You can argue which one was first, etc., in the West and the popularized world music as well. But he helped go along with that. Eno himself actually coined the phrase ambient music to describe his own work. And the ambient music guide states he's brought from relative obscurity into the popular consciousness fundamental ideas about ambient music, including the idea of modern music as subtle atmosphere, as chill out, as impressionistic, as something that creates space for quiet reflection or relaxation. I think that's a really cool point that they probably didn't get that before, and now we think of that as almost commonplace.
Yeah.
And it's quite an amazing achievement. But above all of this, he has also had the ultimate honor of being a subject of a Half Man Half Biscuit song called Eno Collaboration. So it doesn't get any better than that.
It
Obviously he's
is.
gone on and do loads of other stuff, but I won't go on to it. So there you go.
No, it's all. I'm sure that there's a million other things to unpack about this legend of a man, but it is really cool to kind of sit back and reflect a little bit on, like, at this point, how many songs we've done on this channel and how many of them were directly affiliated with him in some way, shape, or form, and all the others, countless others that wouldn't be around if it wasn't for some of the ambient stuff that he was doing and sort of him pioneering and blazing that trail. Like, I think of like Sleep Party People, like this cold wave stuff from Europe that we did that is just drenched in ambient sound. And that's clearly, 30 years later, but still has Eno's fingerprints all over it, even though he never touched it. You know what I mean? Which is what is so. I guess that speaks to the man's legend because it's all over the map. I guess I'm talking about a place over there in Europe. I mean, the British Isles, obviously, the States, Australia, all over the world. This guy's sound has made an impression, and that's really, really cool. And because of that, has splintered off into a million different little, sub Eno pieces that are out there now to enjoy. So kind of a godfather of a certain brand of music in a lot of way.
It's hard to think of someone who's more influential, really, on such a vast array of music. It's incredible. But a lot of people don't know his actual solo work. They just know his.
I was one of them until 10 minutes ago. You know what I mean? So
So yeah, really interesting guy. And just to say, he's carried on doing lots of stuff. He also, has worked in various sort of humanitarian forms, particularly with conflicts around the world, like the Middle East at the moment and other stuff. So he's got involved as well, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
For sure. So yeah, that's a little trip into the world of Eno, which is fascinating. It is avant-garde, and in particular, there's later work, and it's not for everyone. But I think this is just cool and interesting, and I think there's enough there for anyone to dip their toe in, hopefully.
The energy of this track alone was enough. And then I just started to enjoy every other enjoyable facet of it, just hit me like a wave. So I was like, oh yeah, bring this one on. This is great. Great choice, man.
It's a great album. The album before it's great. The one after it's great. I mean, he had a little run there of really, really good, and they're all different as well. So it's really interesting. Cool. I will wrap things up and say thanks for listening to Sandy.
Thank you.
Folks out there, tell us what you think about this track. If you like it, do hit the like button and drop us some comments about Third Uncle, this version, Bauhaus's version, Brian Eno, this album, all the stuff. I mean, there's a shitload to go at. So yeah, I think I might, depending on how this go, I might give you another track from one of the other albums. There's a really interesting song with quite an amazing guitar solo that you will not have the like of before. People who know Eno know what I'm talking about from the album previous to this. So I might drop that little teaser there. But yeah, please, we'd love to hear from you and really enjoy all your comments. If you haven't subscribed already, take out one of the cards, see what it says. It says subscribe. I was lucky. Just do that. We really appreciate everyone who supports the channel. It was the cards. I don't make the rules. What do I? But yeah, we really appreciate everybody who does support the channel. So yeah, please to help on out. And that being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.